The midpoint formula. What do we use the midpoint formula for? Well, I want to give a visual on this one before we get into the actual formula. Here are 2 points in the coordinate plane that form the endpoints of a segment, or they are endpoints and they form a segment. If we connect them, and I want to know what's the middle of that red line segment. So it looks like it's in that area, and so you should have an idea of what kind of numbers are you heading for. You're expecting a very small positive number like 1 or 2, and then a negative number that's further away from 0, so like -4, -5, something like that. So now we can talk about the formula. Midpoint formula. Think about what you're heading for. Your answer is going to be a point. It's going to be an x and a y. So that helps you remember which formula this one is. We're going to just average the x's, find the mean of those two numbers, average the y's, find the mean of those two numbers. So if we plug in what we've got, our two x coordinates are -5 and 7, and our two y coordinates are -6 and -2. If we do the math, we get 1 and -4. And that's about what we expected. It's right about in there. Perfect. That's the middle of the red line segment. So here's a full example. You can try it on your own or you can watch along. Find the midpoint of segment AB given the following endpoints. Didn't write a segment AB. Should have written a segment AB. Here's my endpoints. And so I'm going to plug these into the formula. Remembering I'm going to get a point as my answer, so that's a good little habit to have. We know we're going to average the x values. In this case, -3 and 4. Average the y values, 5 and -7. So we get these two values. Now this time one of them is going to stay a fraction. That's perfectly fine. So 1/2 -1 is in the middle of that segment. You can always do a little rough sketch and just check the reasonableness. If that's in the, somewhere around the right area. Right? How did we get 1/2? That's how we got it. How did we get -1? That's how we got it. And I wanted to write it out like that with the answer off to the other side of an equal sign, because that's going to help us with the next level of problem. What we've been doing so far are kind of the easy ones, the forward ones. These are the have to knows. The next one's a little more advanced, but if you get algebra, shouldn't be too bad, because instead of writing the answer as a point, we're going to do something a little different. Our answer's going to end up being a point in the end, but this time you're going to get one end point and the midpoint. And so you're going to have to find the other end point. So think about it. This time I've given you one of the points we had before, and I'm giving you the answer that we had before. Previously we were looking for the midpoint, so before that was our answer. So now it's really the same formula, it's just arranged a little differently, because we have the x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is going to be over 2. That's just like before, but now instead of just calculating that and writing it down below, we're going to set that equal to the x of the midpoint, the x coordinate of the midpoint. That's what we're going to be able to plug in. So this time we're going to be able to plug in that number on the left. Instead of just answering down below, we're going to have a left side to our equation and a right side to our equation. We're going to be able to plug in x sub 1, but this other one we don't know. That's what we're looking for. So to clear the fraction, we're going to multiply both sides by 2. If it makes you happy, put it over 1. I tend not to show that. Cross cancel over there. So we don't even have to multiply over there. We just have 14 equals 4 plus x. Little baby equation. Solve that. And we get x equals 10. So that's the x coordinate of our second endpoint. Do the same thing with the y's. Again, go make sure which point you're using. We want to make sure it's the end point that goes where the old endpoints went, and the midpoint that goes where the midpoint was. So this time, right, that negative 1 is the y-coordinate of the midpoint. That's why it goes on the left. That 6 is the y-coordinate of one of the endpoints, so it goes just where the endpoints have always gone. We don't know the other endpoint. Do the math. Get y alone. And so we get negative 8. So that's the other endpoint of a segment. You can graph it and see how it works, and that might help you out. Okay, give you one more of those to try on your own. You can pause it and give it a try. If it helps you to do a graph, do a graph. You're trying to find the endpoint. I gave you a midpoint. I gave you an endpoint. So the endpoint's going to go above the 2. The midpoint's going to go on the left. Same math as before. So the x-coordinate of our midpoint is going to be, of our end point is going to be 3. And then the y-coordinate of our end point is going to be negative 1. So that would be the other end point.